Okay, guys, it's quite interesting to note that going back to when William Hague was leader of the Tory party, he was a big Eurosceptic, and that was a big part of his campaign back in 2002. Also, David Cameron was a big Eurosceptic. However, they are now both arch Remainers. What is it about being within the power structure that totally corrupts them? On the other hand, we have Ian Duncan Smith, who's John Redwood, Michael Howard, all previous either leaders or leadership contenders who have remained arch Eurosceptic and are still very powerful on it, but not with those others. And even Corbyn, prior to the 2017 general election, he was wiping off all the things on his website that he'd previously said against the EU. Although I have to hand it to Corbyn, he hasn't totally caved yet. He's holding out on not having a second referendum, even though he said we need a new general election. He hasn't caved on the second referendum. So he's kind of holding his line. But as you can see, the further people go up, the more likely it is that they're a Europhile rather than a Eurosceptic. And even with Theresa May, she didn't campaign for Remain very ardently. She was hardly on the campaign trail at all. However, once she became Prime Minister, she kind of seemed to become awake to all the... I'm just getting a message here. I hope you're seeing me. She suddenly decided to become awake to Remain. The other important thing to note is that it's not necessary to accept as many of the EU laws as we do. You know, I've complained incessantly about the EU arrest warrant. However, other countries have put safeguards there to protect their citizens from being sent to countries where there isn't a robust or fair legal system. Theresa May didn't bother to do that. She totally accepted the EU arrest warrant as Home Secretary and passed all the investigation orders. So there are tools within the EU to limit or block some of the legislation or put in safeguards, which our government, for some strange reason, don't ever decide to do. Remember when Romania and all those, Bulgaria, those countries joined, many other countries like Germany put limits on the amount of people that could come from newly joined countries, which was totally allowed to do in the EU. But the UK, they didn't want to do it, although that was under Tony Blair, Labour government, so you can see why. But why is it the Tory government, Theresa May in particular, and many others, fail to do the things you can do within the EU to push back? France do it. France don't follow every EU legislation to the letter. They rebel against it. Germany rebel. And there are, even if you rebelling, there are still things you can do within EU law not to take all these things on board. I just wonder why our government don't do it. Have they not got the guts? Do they not really understand the EU themselves? I think they simply don't understand the EU or EU law, and they don't understand how we could have protected ourselves a lot further. And I think Remainers should reflect on that, because maybe some people wouldn't have become as impassioned about Brexit if some of those safeguards had been used along the time to limit the negative effects of many of the laws. On the other hand, the populace, as with all our MPs, and I think the leaders as well, seem totally oblivious of all this, so I don't suppose it would make any difference. Anyway, just wanted to say that.